Hi, y'all. It's Brigitte Cutshall with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Greg, the Hydrogen Man. Can you say hi, Greg?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Bridget.
I appreciate it. I'm so glad we connected. It's little bits and pieces that we know each other. Not this is the first time we've ever talked, but we have
Yeah.
a sort of stuff in common. We've had health issues and we found ways to overcome it. And you've had multiple issues throughout your life.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure it started, I'm not sure when you were a teen or when you were in your early 20s. Life is tough, and that's kind of why I started this podcast and how people can find their ways through it. And I like to focus on the positive aspect at the end, right? It's kind of how
Yeah, of course.
it's because there is a not everything can be solved, but you have to be open to solutions, right? And that's really what it is. Everybody's different, everybody's body's different, their backgrounds are different, and their environments are different. And I guess the first thing that I wanted to ask you, what got you into understanding hydrogen? It's really critical to our bodies, right?
Yeah, ultimately, what really happened was that I got sick. I had numerous medical problems from tumors. My liver and my kidneys weren't doing so good. I had autoimmune issues that were causing a massive amount of inflammation also, which caused a lot of pain. And then I literally couldn't even walk. It got that bad where I was completely bedridden. And the pain was so bad that they would literally give me things like morphine and some heavy duty drugs that literally didn't even make a dent, which was that's how bad it was. And if you've gone through pain long enough, it really scrambles your head. Obviously, you lose hope. It's ironic because I worked in the medical field for over 2 decades. So I know how Western medicine works. I know what goes on behind the scenes. I know the things that they don't tell everybody. And I've worked with numerous different doctors and specialists. And I remember always thinking to myself when I was working was, I hope I never get sick because I knew that the options were very limited in Western medicine. And then lo and behold, not only did I get sick, it was bad. It was so bad that obviously I couldn't walk, but it even reached a level to where I remember, and I still remember this. And this is, this story of mine. Yes, it's physical ailments, but it's also very spiritual in nature. But I was literally laying down on a couch because I couldn't walk, and I was just going to watch TV, and I grabbed the remote control to, turn on the television, and I couldn't do it because my joints hurt that bad.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't even lift, a remote control. And this was a very big breaking point for me because things were just progressively getting worse. And Western medicine had no answers because all they want to do is either pump you full of anti-inflammatories, pump you full of pain medicine. And the moment you get off of them, everything's basically comes back. Of course, the pain medicine wasn't helping me anyway. And it was just a really, really bad thing. And then, of course, the side effects from such medicines. And I should say before I keep going, I'm not going to give any medical advice today. I'm not going to make any medical claims.
Right.
I'm also not going to make any claims for or against any products. But that was really my story. And then at that moment, I think this happens a lot when we're at a low point. And I don't know if you ever went through this, but I just made a prayer. At that moment, I was so broken. And of course, I'm crying. And because I used to be really athletic, and I used to be very capable. And I was way too young to be going through this kind of stuff, though. I did start having issues in my 20s, and then they got progressively worse into my 30s. And then that's when things started getting really bad. And now actually I'm almost 50. So it's been a long road. And so ultimately, what happened was I make this prayer, and I don't know why, it was all instinct and came from my heart. I didn't pray for some miraculous healing. I didn't pray for, hey, just heal me. Maybe I didn't believe that that would happen. I just remember praying and saying, God, if you can just guide me, somehow guide me to find the answers to resolve these health issues. And by guiding me, I just know that whatever it is that could help me would probably be able to help a lot of other people. I just kind of assumed that the method would work for other people. And so I made this prayer, and then I did make a promise to him, hence the reason that I do what I do now. I promised and said, if you can help me and if I resolve these issues, I promise that I will share the information, that was bestowed upon me. And it must have been 1 or 2 weeks later. Something happened, a little like switch in my head, something flipped because all of a sudden I started having literally things like visions about how the human body works. I started reading medical data that I couldn't comprehend before. Something just began to change because I was so frustrated, to be quite honest with you, with certain podcasts. I hate to say that, but what I mean the frustration was I'm trying to find health. You're looking everywhere. I did listen to podcasts, but they were all contradicting each other. You'd have one podcast saying you should eat nothing but meat, then another one saying you should eat
You
nothing
know,
but vegetables. And one says drink alkaline water and says no, drink this water, and try this supplement and that supplement. And basically the way that I thought about it is I thought, well, what if I did everything that everybody says, which you kind of can't. But if you took every single supplement that everybody tells you is good for you, you're going to end up with a massive cupboard full of supplements. And when I started seeing lab reports on what's in this stuff, I'm like, this can't be good for you. In fact, it appears it'll actually strain your kidneys. The last thing you want to do is strain the body when you're trying to try to bring health and repair it. And so the whole thing became very confusing and frustrating. And I did try all these different diets and all these different supplements and all these different machines. And my health was only getting worse. I wasn't getting better. Things were definitely getting worse. And so it was this whole process. And then at some point, I just thought, you know what? When that little switch in my head flipped, I just thought, I'm going to start doing critical thinking on my own. I'm going to stop listening to these people. I'm going to think on my own. I'm going to try to back it up with actual medical data also. I'm also going to observe nature and the power of nature and see if I can learn from that. And then I also looked at ancient scriptures and different writings of ancient wisdom in regards to understanding health, potentially, ancient wisdom like that. So that was the method that I did. And I could give you a simple example. I don't know why I felt that water was so important. And I have a lab report right here, actually. This is a third-party lab report, third-party lab testing. And this is just what's in our water. And there's not all just that. There's pages
wow.
and pages and pages of the kind of stuff that's in our water. And it was shocking to me when I found out that there's literally things like radioactive contaminants in our water. I had no idea. And that water filters are not removing those. And who does it affect the most? Little children. Yeah, children and babies, because their livers aren't fully developed, their kidneys aren't fully developed, their brains. And it's very sad. People don't realize what's going into these babies' bodies. And water is absolutely foundational to good health, in my opinion, because water is a carrier. It's carrying all these biological contaminants, not just pesticides, herbicides, fluorides, PFAS, microplastics, things like viruses, bacteria, parasites. I mean, just so many different things, that heavy metals, so many things in our water. So I thought water filters took care of that stuff. Lo and behold, no. So if you really want to clean your water, if people just want to know, like, they can. Now my YouTube channel, I do everything for free. So everything's there for people to watch. It's Uprising 144K if people want to watch. The videos are numbered. So video 388 shows you the details on how to clean water. I don't necessarily need to go into that right now, but truly show you how to clean water. And then I stumbled upon the data, because I'm a data guy. I look at data. I'm not going off of opinions. I'm going to go off of data. And the data, which is also very tricky to read because there is manipulated data. There is data that is funded by different agencies and different people. And so I had to really, really look also at the difference between short-term data and long-term data. So all these things mattered. And then I stumbled upon hydrogen. And I remember, and by the way, hydrogen is just a gas. Okay, just like oxygen is a gas, and there's medical gases. We use oxygen medically when necessary. And hydrogen gas is being used medically in roughly 30 university hospitals in Japan. It's already approved. In fact, we're not talking about a gas that has like 10 studies or 20 studies, which would be okay, maybe 50 studies. There is over 2,000 studies to date. So anybody who's a doubter, because by the way, I'm a huge skeptic. And when I first read the data on hydrogen, which was very preliminary at the time, I thought it was a scam. I'm like, what is this? What is this article? Who wrote this scientific paper? And so I kept reading the data for almost 4 years. That's how skeptical I was. I kept thinking this stuff there's no way it was real. I was trying all these other methods to try to repair my body, and I was not having luck. And things were only, again, getting worse and worse, and it was very heartbreaking. And then finally, I was just so desperate. I'm like, you know what? I keep reading about this hydrogen stuff, and I started looking at where this data is really coming from, and it was coming from Japan. And it looked pretty legitimate. The Japanese are, they're pretty amazing and remarkable people. I don't think people really know that much about the culture. All I can tell you is when I realized this and I dug deep into it, I thought, oh, okay, so this stuff must be the real deal. But where in the world do I get hydrogen? I can't go to the corner drugstore. I don't know how to use it. This is before everybody was talking about it. By the way, this was, over a decade ago. A lot of people are talking about it now, though I tried the cheap stuff, the cheap little Chinese bottles. All these are made in China, by the way. Things like hydrogen tablets. I tried these cheap methods, not understanding that how you make hydrogen matters. And one example I can give you is the way that we grow food doesn't matter. Of course it matters. The health of the soil. Are we using a bunch of chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, whatever? All these different chemicals that we use and how those potentially, most likely, affect our bodies in potentially a negative way. And so how you grow food matters, how you produce hydrogen matters. And I was trying the hydrogen, to be quite honest, I was actually getting still worse. I wasn't doing well. And then I realized how you make it matters. And then I had to study engineering because I studied so many things along this path. And I actually discovered and learned every single modality of how to make hydrogen. So there's many different methods. I looked at every single method, the pluses and the phone glitch there. What happened was I looked at the positives and the negatives of every method of making hydrogen. And that's when I realized I can't believe the stuff I'd been taking. I was extremely disappointed what I was putting in my body. I was not happy that I was taking these pills now or using these cheap products from China because I learned about the science of metals. I had to learn about metallurgy, by the way. I had to learn so many things because there was no doctor who knew any of this stuff. So I really had to create my own path. Once I did this, and I eventually did find my way to health, and it did lead me to Japan, I started realizing that most of these products were made in China. Even to date, 99% or more of the hydrogen industry, it's all Chinese. And they do try to hide things. So that's another thing that I learned about not just hydrogen companies, but also water companies, also supplement companies. It's a lot like the pharmaceutical industry and a lot like Western medicine. They don't want you to know.
They're hiding stuff in there. And that's why people I've noticed, well, you've probably seen it too, so many more people are just sick and having autoimmune diseases now. It's because of what's in our environment and in our food.
Yeah, they did. There's a lot of shenanigans. And I feel like because the alternative health industry has taken off so much, then wherever the money goes, the vultures are there.
Yes.
And that's just the way it works. And it was very sad for me, which is, again, why I do what I do, because I try to be I want to stick to the truth and really to the good stuff. So I try to make it easy for people so they don't have to do all the homework, because it's taken me years of my life. And my life was literally on the line, because on top of all the medical issues, I also had a heart condition.
Oh, wow.
On top of all this. And that was the one that the doctor told me, my cardiologist, he said, this is going to end you. He said, and technically I'm supposed to be dead right now. I was already supposed to have not made it. And they were talking about doing open heart surgery. And I was trying this hydrogen stuff and it wasn't working, and all these different diets and supplements and machines and healing centers and health gurus and naturopathic physicians. I mean, just everything, you spend a small fortune and you end up with nothing. And then eventually what I did is I started learning about the hydrogen production, and that led me on a path to, ironically, the #1 hydrogen company in the world, which happens to be in Japan. And I did not expect that. In fact, for people who want to see their equipment, which is what saved my life, that's on a website called Holy Hydrogen. And what a name. Of all the things, I pray to God, and then there's Holy Hydrogen. And holy, by the way, means to be pure. And in fact, the water filter that I recommend is a website called mypurewater.com. And that's carbon distillation. And of course, if people want a discount, people love discounts. But if they want the code, it's Uprising144K, same as the channel. But anyway, so once I found that product and I started using it, I was absolutely shocked. Didn't realize the difference it made compared to other products. In fact, I'd even used some other product called a Brown's gas device. That thing made me sick, and I couldn't understand why something that's supposed to be good for me would make me sick. And so once I used the right equipment, I was shocked when my heart condition went away. My cardiologist verified that, and I was like, this is crazy. And he thought it was totally crazy. And obviously, all these medical issues that started disappearing, and I thought, this is so incredible. And then I started sharing it with my father and different people that I knew. People with their issues were things like, I was literally witnessing things like people with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, glaucoma, even things like celiac disease, Crohn's disease, IBS, leaky gut. I've worked with people with, I actually have imaging of a before and after brain tumor from the Mayo Clinic that I was just sent to me by a doctor. Some people start using literally my technique. There's a woman who's almost 100 years old with numerous heart conditions. Doctors couldn't do surgery on her because she's almost 100 years old. Her heart conditions are all gone. I got an email from the doctor. And this one thing after another, it was so unbelievable. The arthritis, the inflammation, the health of the liver. One of my own brothers actually contacted me one day out of the blue. I didn't know that he was having kidney failure. And yeah, and he told me, he's like, man, I got about maybe a month and they're about to put me on dialysis. Do you think you can help me? And I'm like, of course, because the doctors in Western medicine, they tell you it's completely impossible to reverse kidney disease. Well, my brother reverses kidney disease. This protocol that I created for myself, just as I had prayed, was working for other people. And I think it's because although we're all different, as you stated earlier, we're also all the same. We all need water. We all need the nutrients. We all have hearts. We all have lungs. We have things that are the same and things that are different. But I really strongly believe my faith in quote unquote God's creation. I don't believe in chemicals. I believe in the natural. I believe in the pure. So I started purifying the water. I started putting the best, cleanest hydrogen with proper levels. I started getting only organic food. And then, of course, the dietary part, which I don't really like to talk about a lot because people it's kind of weird. When you talk about diet, it's like talking about religion or politics. People lose their
I'm
mind.
certified in all that stuff because I went to, I think it was Dr. Mark Hyman that convinced me to go down that path, and it helped me heal.
Yeah, I mean, food I think is very important. In fact, just recently, a doctor contacted me. He's actually a surgeon, and he had numerous medical issues. And he said he tried a lot of things and things were not working for him. Very nice man, incredibly smart, because it was one of the best conversations because he understood my method when I explained it to him, scientifically. And he said, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And he had gut issues, CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome. And what was his other? Oh, he has type 1 diabetes.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah. And so he just wrote me a message 2 days ago. And he wrote me because he's been following my protocol. What I didn't know, and I'm so glad he actually did this, he's been tracking everything. He's been doing all sorts of blood work. Obviously, he's checking his blood glucose levels, his insulin usage. He's tracking everything. And he had also gut issues. So he's tracking everything. And the results that he said came out, he said, are so unbelievable. He literally is like, not only did you just change my life, he goes, I can't believe what I'm witnessing in all these results. And he goes, of course, I feel great. He goes, all my gut issues are already gone. And it took less than 2 months. But and his wife's a doctor too, which is interesting. And apparently she has medical problems too. We're going to help her next. But the interesting thing about it is, he said, and this is where things get kind of, people will argue this, but he said, what's weird is that my carbohydrate intake went up with the protocol that I have. He says, but my insulin requirements went down by almost 80%. He's almost off insulin completely. And that doesn't make sense in the logical world. That people think that you need to eat no carbs, quote unquote, no sugars. And in my opinion, it's not as intelligent statement, because when you say the word sugar, it's like saying the word vegetables. But what if the vegetables are, again, grown in depleted soils, using a bunch of herbicides? Like, what vegetables are we talking here, right? And so when he's talking about carbs, what carbs are we talking about here? What exact sugars are we talking about? Because I'm not a believer in processed sugar. In fact, I hate that stuff. I don't use any of it.
Same.
So, but there is natural sugar in a carrot, and I'm okay with those, right? And so it's this whole thing, but he's proven that this technique that I've created for myself is clearly working. And he had tried, by the way, the whole carnivore diet. It didn't really work for him in the long term. That's the problem, I think, with such diets on short-term data and long-term data.
Right.
And he had tried multiple diets and equipment and, supplements. He went down the same road. He was actually really frustrated. And he happened to see me on a show, and he's like, I'm going to reach out to this guy. And that's why I'm really grateful that he's doing that. So it shows the power of the hydrogen, that the technique that I'm using. And I got to say, yes, I'm using this equipment, but people who don't know, this Japanese equipment, the story behind it, which I didn't know originally, I just went off the data as far as seeing what kind of metal they're using, the techniques they're using, and everything was so spot on, so perfect. I'm like, who is this company? It would have saved me so much time if I would have just looked for the number one hydrogen company in the world. It would have been so much easier. But what I found out is that the gentleman who created this device, his daughter had been born with a very serious medical issues. And they told him, this is so sad. They told him, your daughter's not going to make it. You know, this is his first daughter. They're telling him that he'll be lucky if she reaches the age of 3 to 5.
Wow.
She'll probably never walk. She's never going to go to a normal school. She'll never probably go to, have a boyfriend or any of these things that he, was hoping for his daughter. It's such a sad story. But the only beautiful thing that came out of it is he knew about the hydrogen data, and he was like, I'm going to give some of this stuff to my daughter with hoping they'll help. It's so new. So he got, actually, ironically, he got like hydrogen tablets also, the cheaper bottles, but then he bought some expensive equipment like the Kangen machines and water ionizers and different stuff. But when he presented them all to the doctor and said, hey, the physician that's treating his daughter, he said, can I give some of this to her? I really want her to try hydrogen. The doctor said, you can't give that stuff to her. And he was like, why not? He said, do you not understand the potential impurities within these products? And that's when he was like, what? He said, your daughter's so sensitive, it could end her life. And so that's when he realized that the only way that he was going to be able to make the right type of hydrogen, he needed to go find the equipment, which he kept looking for. It didn't exist, Bridget. And talk about the love from a father. And of course, you have to have the intelligence. You have to be able to, he did so much research. He got Toyota. Toyota has amazing engineers, technology, know-how, especially in the world of hydrogen. People don't know that. He got Yamaha. He got Kobe Steel. By the way, you need a certain type of metal technology to do this properly. He got G-Shock, the watch company. He created a masterpiece. This little machine, what it does, we are lucky that it even exists. That's one of the reasons, I feel like I owe this guy my life. And that's how important this has been to me, that he did this. And what sickens me is an industry that, in my opinion, is so corrupt that it's just Chinese stuff. Nobody cares, cheap metals, turn on the power, try to make some hydrogen as a byproduct, and I don't think people care about doing it right. I mean, it saddens me, like the pills are a really big one. Have you heard of the pills, by the way?
I have not.
These hydrogen tablet stuff is very,
Yeah, the tablets, yeah.
yeah, to me, it's a huge disappointment. If I were to just tell you a few facts about hydrogen is odorless, colorless, tasteless, and pH neutral. The pills don't do any of it. They're not odorless, they stink. They're not colorless, they turn to the color of metal. So if anybody ever wonders what's in them, you might want to do a heavy metal test. Just that's all I'm saying, because I'm not going to make claims, because that's not what I do, but if people want to do that. It's not pH neutral. It makes the water get highly acidic. So now, Bridget, we go from everybody telling us that alkaline water was the best. Now all of a sudden it's acid water that's the best. Like, what is it, right? And my critical thinking is, how about clean water?
Yeah.
Like, forget the pH. How about we make it clean? And that's why I learned every water filtration in existence.
As you were talking, thought, what does hydrogen actually do to your body to help it to heal? I was just curious, what is the actual method?
Yeah, so there's numerous things that it does, and nobody in the world knows the full-on mechanism of it. But we do know it appears to function as a selective antioxidant.
Okay.
So it's not just an antioxidant, it's selective, which is very interesting. The other thing that people don't realize is that antioxidants, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Bridget, they come in different sizes. Are you aware that antioxidants come in different sizes?
Right.
So the size of vitamin E versus the size of vitamin C versus CoQ10 versus all these different antioxidants are in different sizes. Hydrogen is tinier than any of them. Why is this important? Because try to push an elephant through your front door. That's like trying to access free radicals, which, by the way, the Japanese are hypothesizing due to medical research that was blowing their mind. They couldn't understand why hydrogen was having a profound effect on multiple medical conditions. When they showed the list of pharmaceuticals needed, it was huge. And they're thinking, why can one thing like hydrogen appear to have an effect that all these pharmaceuticals are needed for? It almost didn't make sense. And their theory is that they said that 97 to 98% of all disease appears to come down to one thing: free radical damage. That appears to be the main thing: oxidative stress. Hydrogen, molecular hydrogen, appears to have an affinity to oxygen. Hence water. Water is H2O, meaning molecular hydrogen and oxygen. So oxidative stress appears to be a form of oxygen. Think about like ROS. It's reactive oxygen species, right? Oxidative stress sounds like oxygen, right?
Right.
And oxidation can make metal turn to dust. It'll rust it all up and it's all dust. So it has a selective antioxidative property that can literally penetrate any part of the human body. There is no place it cannot reach, even to the core of the mitochondria, which now we're learning a lot about mitochondrial dysfunction and its relationship to health. And that was literally some of the very first research done on hydrogen was on the mitochondria. And it appears to be amazing for the mitochondria and its functioning. So that's just one of the things. And yes, it appears to also function as an anti-inflammatory. They've seen it help with cell signaling. They've seen it open up what's called ghost vessels in the body. There's so many things that it appears to do. They still haven't figured out exactly how it works, but ironically, and have you heard of a place called Lourdes, France?
Yes, I have.
And so people go to this holy place in Lourdes, France. They drink the water from there, and crazy enough, people's medical issues appear to be disappearing, right? Now, everybody thought it was placebo. They literally sent scientists and different doctors to literally keep track of some of these people and seeing that it was real. And they're like, what is in this water? The scientists couldn't figure it out. They kept testing it, saying it's just H2O. There's nothing in this water that's magical, until the Japanese. The Japanese discovered that that water had high levels of, you might guess it, molecular hydrogen.
Wow.
And so that's how a lot of the research really got started. So lo and behold, it's something that is God-given from nature, which is, again, the way that I look for a lot of my answers. It was long believed that hydrogen gas was just an inert gas. It does nothing, right? That was always the theory behind it. But when they started doing the research in Japan and seeing the profound effect it had on mice, and I saw the footage and I saw a lot of the tests, it was unbelievable. Like, you could clearly see the difference. And I show really good lab tests, like I show some on my video number 8. I show a live blood analysis, which a doctor contacted me on my video 68, where the doctor literally told me, she goes, what you're showing there is impossible. She said, this has to be a scam, just like I thought originally it was a scam. She actually bought the same equipment from the site Holy Hydrogen, because that's the official company. And she took it to her own lab and did the exact same study. She was trying to prove me wrong.
Gotcha.
And I was telling her, I said, look, this is legitimate. It's from a lab in Japan. It's very legitimate. She said, no, I'm gonna show you that this is impossible. After she did all the testing, the results came back exactly the same. And then she was like, oh my God, this is real. And not only was it real, she started giving it to her mother, who was in her 90s. And the results, this doctor was always giving her mother like different supplements and reishi mushrooms and trying the next big product. And it was always something that she was trying to give her mother. And her mother didn't get that much results. And this is all from everything that she told me. But when she started giving her the hydrogen, apparently the mother, within a few months, could now stand up and start walking a lot, where before she could barely get up and walk around. And she told her daughter, the doctor, she said, honey, you've brought a lot of things to me throughout the years, and I never question what you give me. I just take whatever, because I trust you. You're my daughter. You love me. You're a doctor. And she said, but whatever this stuff is that you're bringing me, this is it. This is the one. But I'm very curious. What the heck is it? Because it just looks like water. What is it? And that's when she told her, she goes, Mom, it's hydrogen. She's like, what?
Wow.
So so many, I mean, I've been doing this for over a decade. So it's that the things that I've seen are so remarkable. And obviously it's changed my life. It's changed a lot of people's lives that I've seen. And there's so much medical data in regards to it. I just wish that people talked more about the importance of how to make it, because everybody, again, the vultures come out, right? And they love the Chinese stuff. In fact, I found out that the guy who was trying to make the machine for his daughter was actually approached and said, look, you can save a lot of money. You can do all this in China, make this machine in China. And he actually said, nope, I am not letting the Chinese touch my machine. Everything is going to be done to the highest standard. I don't care if it costs more. I don't care if there's no profit in it. This is for my daughter. And he started using the best hydrogen in the world for his daughter. And by the way, his daughter is almost 18 years old now. And it is an absolute miracle. There is nobody in the world with her medical conditions who has ever survived this long.
Wow.
So it's a very unbelievable story.
His curiosity, I see that as curiosity, saved his daughter's life. He was determined and he probably saw hope. I like the word hope, by the way. It's a form of praying, but I had hope. That's kind of how we have to get through. So,
I agree. I absolutely agree with you. And I really think on a spiritual front, this is probably kind of weird, but I kind of believe that maybe his daughter chose this life from her spirit to impact her father so that he could create this thing that didn't just touch my life, didn't just touch her life. It has touched so many lives. And those are the real, because out of all the garbage out there, all these products and all this stuff, there is few diamonds out there, and in the world of hydrogen, there's only like 3, and they're all Japanese. There's the Lord's Hydrofix Premium, which is the one that I use because it's actually the best one. The second best machine is actually $32,000, if you can believe that. And it's also a Japanese machine. And this little machine that this guy created actually appears to outperform that one, which is a really big deal because it's only a little over $2,000.
right.
And it's a device that you get that makes both the hydrogen water and the hydrogen gas inhalation. It's also the most lab tested, scrutinized machine in the world. And they're the only company in the world that lab tests every single machine they build and certify them. Nobody in the industry does that. I mean, these guys are so beyond everybody, and it's because they didn't think about the money. They just wanted to make it the best.
They weren't thinking about making a profit. They're thinking about helping somebody or someone that was dear to them, like you mentioned, that guy's daughter. It's amazing what you're saying. I've heard of hydrogen, but it was never offered to me. Right? They were offering things like acupuncture, things like that.
I got all that too. I tried everything under the sun. I'm telling you, Bridget, I lost everything too. I mean, I lost my house. I lost my job. I even lost my wife. It sounds like an old country song, but no, it absolutely ruined my life. And I really thought I had no hope because when you can't walk, I mean, you can't do anything. I can't even crawl because my joints hurt so bad. I mean, it was hell. It was absolute hell.
And your body repaired itself with hydrogen, right?
Well, the craziest part is that now I was tested even more recently too. There was a guy, he's like, I want to test the hydrogen man. And this is a funny story. One of the tests, they did numerous tests on me. And just so you know where I'm testing at, I'm literally off the charts. His stuff would only go so far. And he said, nobody's ever tested like this. He said, you're less than 1% of the population. So I went from being so unhealthy to one of the healthiest. If I can do that, that means that anybody can do it, Bridget. This is possible. Right. And one of the tests they did is they let out all this equipment that actually measures the gases that are coming out of your mouth. Have you ever heard about this?
No.
Yeah. So they measured the gases that you're exhaling, by the way, say a lot about the condition of your kidneys, of course, liver, blood, your gut microbiome, which is responsible for almost 80% of your immune system. And so all these crazy things. And this is the numbers that he told me. He said, look, when all my patients come in, we're going to give you a number from a 1 to a 5. And 1 is the best that you can possibly score. 5 is the worst. He said almost every single person who comes in here, he says, test at a 5. He goes, everybody. Standard American diet, the way people eat, whatever. He said, I've had a few people test a 4. And then this guy, you should have seen him. He's like this. He's like super muscular, super good shape, super athletic. He really believes in the whole eat no carbs. He's pretty much carnivore diet kind of guy. And that's what he believes in, and that's fine, right? And he said the best that he could ever score, and he would do fasting, and he's really into health, right? He's got all the equipment. He tested at a 3.
Oh, wow.
And he said that's the best that anybody's ever scored. He goes, nobody's ever gotten better than a 3. So I went into his lab, and he's like, okay, let's set all this up. And I started going through all his tests. And I blow into these machines, to test the gases. And I tested at a 1. And he was like, that's impossible. He goes, no, that's not possible. He said, give me 20 minutes. He recalibrated all his equipment. He goes, there must be something wrong. Recalibrates everything. I redo it all, test at a 1. And he's like, hold on a second. He goes, this just can't be possible. And then he said, I remember this. He goes, wait a second. What kind of diet are you following again? And we went into all that. And he goes, that's not possible. You can't eat like that and be scoring like this. He goes, that's impossible. On top of it all, the other thing that he said, he goes, wait a second, you're messing with me. He goes, you're fasting, aren't you? And I said, no, I'm not fasting. And he said, when was the last time you ate? And I said, maybe 2-3 hours ago. He goes, this is bonkers. He goes, I can't understand this. He goes, how are you achieving this? And then when he saw the data on hydrogen and he saw the results, he immediately bought equipment for himself. And he's using the hydrogen quite regularly now, obviously. And that's obviously why they call me the hydrogen man, because this hydrogen stuff is so remarkable if used correctly. But it's not just hydrogen. Remember, I'm using water as a carrier for the gas.
Right.
So a lot of people I don't think they understand that nature designed it this way. And I'll give you an example. What's running through your veins? We call it blood, but it's really water. Your water is running through your veins. And every time you're inhaling, which in our atmospheric pressure, you're inhaling about 21% oxygen, okay? You're dissolving a gas into your blood, into your water. Okay, that's why when they put an oximeter to measure your oxygen saturation levels, you're saturating gases into liquids. That's what I'm doing with hydrogen. I am saturating the gas into a liquid. You drink the liquid and you can also inhale the gas, but water appears to be, in my opinion, more important than the gas. But I created a technique. I'm the first person in the world. I created a specific technique on how you use them together, which was tested. It was actually, dare I say, stolen, because they watch my videos and they steal my stuff. But all they did was prove that my technique was right. It worked better than any other technique ever. And this is accessible to people. It's like you can have your own natural spring of holy water, if you want to call it that, in your home. And it's not like $30,000 or $50,000. It's actually affordable. It's probably the price of a set of tires and wheels or something for a car, you know? And so it's absolutely life-changing. So, and I thank you for, sharing it with people, because people need hope and people are sick and they don't know a lot of these options out there. And people definitely don't know who I am. I mean, I'm very, very small time, because the whole industry is driven so much by money. This is why you see all the, the Gary Breccas of the world, or the Dr. Mercolas and these kind of bigger names, because there's funding behind it. I don't have any funding behind me. So I've just been doing this all on my own. That's why I did it for free on YouTube.
I think that's really great. You're helping get the message out there to people to understand it, because people are probably afraid to try it because they don't understand it, right?
Or if you do it wrong. I mean, I've
Correct.
seen people do it wrong, and that's been actually a heartbreaker for me, because I have seen problems, and I'm not going to go into them a lot, because I have been attacked a lot by the industry, by the way. They don't want me saying the truth, right? They want to sell their products and cut their corners or do whatever they do. And that's why I don't name the name of any products. I don't do
Right.
that. I just show people what I personally use, and I only give myself the best now. So I always buy organic produce. I only want to clean my water to the highest degree. I only share what I do, and I've been able to do it with almost zero supplements. So you need almost no supplements. In fact, it was really a funny story, Bridget. I was doing blood work every 3 to 6 months, and I was doing that because one of my techniques, part of my protocol, because my protocol entails a few things. One of them is overcoming every single deficiency. Now, I say this because in the world of science, we know for a fact, by the way, that if you have certain deficiencies, they lead to disease. So like, for example, if you're deficient in vitamin C, you get scurvy. How do you fix scurvy? It's not a pharmaceutical. You just get your vitamin C levels back up and everything's all right. So when I looked at all the data in regards to nutritional deficiencies, I realized that almost everybody has nutritional deficiencies. Nobody's walking around with all the minerals, all the nutrients that they actually need. And so I thought, how am I going to achieve this? So I started creating these protocols based on actually the data coming out of Japan too. So here's an interesting thing before I finish this story. Did you know that you can measure the IQ of countries?
I did not.
So I looked into IQs of countries, and what I found was that the smartest country in the world at this time, because it fluctuates a little bit, but it's Japan, it's Singapore, it's Korea, and it's China. Ironically, all Asian countries, right? Okay, that's just, for whatever reason. Here's the crazy thing. I realized that the Japanese have the longest life expectancy of any industrialized nation in the world. Do you not find it ironic, Bridget, that intelligence and longevity go hand in hand? If
Right.
you've ever lived in Japan, which I have, I've seen how they eat. I've seen how they treat their water. I see how they're super into cleanliness. I see that they have so much wisdom in the way they do things. So I learned a lot by observing them in order to create my techniques. And I'll tell you one thing, 75 to 80% of their diet is vegetables.
And
Okay.
that's
So if
something that
people,
is important. People don't think it is.
they don't think it's important. And I'm telling you, there's compounds within natural food from God that people can be like, oh my God, but vegetables have oxalates. That's like, I hear this just a million times a day. And it's like, do you realize your body makes these type of compounds? Do
Right.
you even realize that oxalates actually appear to be anti-parasitic? Do you know how parasites affect your health? Did you know that meat is full of basically parasites? I'm not saying not to eat meat, by the way. That's not my point.
Right.
I'm just saying that life is about balance. And if you think all you have to do is eat meat, eggs, and butter,
I would be only because what I was meaning earlier about we're all different. I grew up, I always craved vegetables. I wanted to have them.
yeah,
And my mom called me between my brothers. I was the rabbit because I needed it for some reason, right?
of course.
I needed it. And
You know what the secret is actually, Bridget? Compounds. One of the Japanese secrets is they discovered that fiber from fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans, mushrooms, even other compounds in mushrooms that they discovered, they're all different. So you can't take some fiber supplement. You need it from nature because
yes,
these foods have all these compounds working synergistically. You can't just look at one thing. That's why when somebody says, oh, you can't eat an apple because they have sugar in it. It's like, do you understand the other things that go in there that actually help regulate blood glucose? So there's
right.
been studies that prove this. And so again, I observed the Japanese to figure this out, not to interrupt you, but to finish this thing about my blood work, because I think the results are so amazing. I worked with a doctor who was a blood specialist of over 30 years. Okay. And when she saw my results, she called me. And when she called me, I got really worried because if you've ever worked in Western medicine, you typically only call
Yeah.
people with bad news. When it's good news, they usually don't call. I get this call, super worried. She's like, just calm down. I just want to talk to you about your blood work. I'm like, what did you find? Please just hurry up and tell me. And she said, look, I'm just saying calm down because we didn't find anything wrong. I said, okay, what'd you find? She said, of over 30 years of doing this, she says, not one time. She goes, if you can believe that, I've never once, I thought maybe 5 times in 30 years, 10 times, 20 times. She goes, not once. I've never seen blood work like yours, ever. She said, I
Wow.
have to call you. I've had so many doctors do this, and I'm not going to name names because I'm sure that they won't want me to. But this is what I've seen, Bridget, behind the scenes. And this is me working in the field too. I saw so much behind the scenes. And now doctors contact me like this one and said, I have so many sick patients and I can't help. Now, she'd never tell that to the patient. She'd probably never say it publicly. But in private, she's letting me know that she's losing hope with her own methods, right? Western medicine. She said, not only am I not able to help these people, she said, my own daughter. So here's another person, when it's your child, all of a sudden it hits home, right? She said, my own daughter's having medical issues and I can't seem to resolve them. And then, of course, the last thing to drop was when she said, I have medical issues, she said, and I can't help them. And when I saw your blood work, she said, I had to call you. How are you achieving this? She thought I was taking some magic pill. And then, of course,
Yeah, it's simple. What you're doing is simple, but people just aren't aware of it, right?
that's the thing I don't understand. Like, it isn't that complicated. It took me so long to figure this out. Now, granted, you have to know how to do it. I do consults and it's a little different for each person and I do have different protocols. But the point is, it was so unbelievable because it proved to me too, I had no nutritional deficiencies. She said, that's nuts. Absolutely bonkers. And the crazy part is when she asked me, and I really do hate to talk about this, but it's important because she said, what kind of diet are you following? And when I told her what kind of diet I'm following, she about lost her mind. She goes, no. She goes, that's impossible. There's no way you're not eating meat. You need meat to overcome these nutritional deficiencies. She said, it's literally impossible. And I said, well, I haven't been eating it for a long time. She goes, let me guess. You've been on this diet thing for like 6 months. I said, it's been over 10 years. And she just couldn't believe it. And now she made me doubt, but she also said, the proof's in the pudding, meaning she goes, I got the blood work. It clearly works, whatever it is that you're doing. But I realized through my research, because I started digging more, thinking, how am I achieving this? And I discovered that it appears, this is all preliminary, that the combination of, yes, the hydrogen, because the hydrogen has a profound effect on the gut in a very positive way. And then also the fiber. See, the Japanese are doing research right now on fiber. This is going to be the next big thing. Everybody's going to try to sell you some fiber supplement, okay? This is the
Right.
next big one. And the effect that it has on the gut microbiome, this combination appears that I am producing roughly, potentially 40% of my nutrients. My own body's producing.
Wow.
That's why doctors and people can't wrap it around their head, because they look at a piece of meat and say, it's got X and Y nutrients. I ingest it. I get those nutrients. That's the end of it, right? They're thinking very black and white. They don't realize that your gut does magical things. And when I say magical things, did you know we still haven't identified every single bacteria in the gut? We still don't know. Okay.
Have you been tested to check your gut bacteria? I was tested once, and I just back before all the, during the cancer stuff, I found an epidemiologist who was a holistic epidemiologist, whatever, and he tested me on that. He said I didn't have a lot of bad bacteria. I didn't have enough of the good stuff for some reason. So that's what was probably causing my health issue. He helped me.
And when you really start looking at like pesticides in food and the negative effects they have on the gut, and all these things that we consume that are literally gut destroying.
Yes.
And then the sad part is that when people have children, like a baby, they don't realize that when you have the baby, don't cut the umbilical cord right away. It's still transferring things. And where does it go? It goes right to where your gut is, right to the belly button, right? And we know scientifically, I did a lot of lactation consulting also. I know all about pregnancy and breastfeeding, and I've used these protocols on women who are pregnant and for their babies and for their breast milk. My techniques work. A crazy amount of milk, really healthy milk. That is so much better than any powdered, formula that you're going to give your poor child. I basically put my faith in God's creation, in nature, in his ways, and trying to understand those ways. And that's what it really came down to, and there's so much more to learn, and I share so much on my channel, but that's kind of the gist of what's happened. And I just hope if it just reaches one person whose life it changes or saves, because I had a woman contact me. She had TBI, traumatic brain injury, really sad story. And she saw me on a show and I didn't know. She did my protocol. And by the way, it solved her issue. She could now talk normal and remember things. She was really hard to communicate. Oh, it was unbelievable. I worked with people with dementia and Alzheimer's too. It's been unbelievable. But after going through that, she called me and she said, I wanted to thank you for saving my life. And I was like, well, I didn't save your life. I didn't jump into a river and save you from drowning. Like, what are you talking about? But what I didn't know, and I've heard this story so many times, Brigitte, so I'm sure there's other people out there. She said, I was going to end my life. And she said, and because she had spent almost $200,000 in doctors and got no results. All these naturopaths and MDs and everything else, no results. And she said, just like I did, she goes, I made a prayer. And she said, I kid you not, within 24 hours, you popped up on some random podcast. And she said, I just felt it. She goes, I felt it in the first 30 seconds, the minute of you talking. And she said, what do I have to lose? Right? So she went for it. And she said, it saved her life. And she's not the only one. I just had another one recently, one of those. And so I was actually wanting to give up recently because, again, the industry is against me. It's been a really, really tough road. And so it makes you kind of want to give up sometimes, you know? And then when you get people saying, look, your technique saved my life, please don't quit, And so that's the kind of stuff that keeps you going. So I encourage people to, support even my channel is free. You just hit subscribe, just to have more subscribers, give videos thumbs up, even if you don't want to, if maybe you're not sick or whatnot, maybe you know someone, but the only way this is going to get out is by people talking about it, because it's not going to get out any other way. You're not going to see this in the news media. You're not going to see the big wigs talking about it because there's no money in it for them. And so the only way it's going to be is just by really sharing this information.
It is. And curiosity is, to me, the root of everything. I think it helps solve problems, but it helps you come up with solutions. And you're very curious. You're helping people. And you kept mentioning the country of Japan, and I think that their best vehicle ever is probably the Toyota. We have a Toyota that's really, it's almost a truck that we gave to our son. I mean, it was originally ours. I think it's 27 years old, and it's amazing.
Because the Japanese,
yes.
One thing that I noticed about the Japanese is I noticed that in a lot of countries, money is put above everything.
Yes.
And I think we see that in America a lot.
Big time.
But I don't think that people realize that the Japanese hold something very high, and that's their honor. It's such an integral part of their culture. And if they dishonor themselves and or their family, I mean, they used to end their lives. They did that
Oh,
whole,
wow.
you know, I mean, that's the level that they hold their honor to. So when they work at something, they dedicate, they give their life to making that engine really good, like you're talking about. There's stories about Ford a long time ago. He would actually try to make the parts break, where the Japanese are trying to make the parts perfect, last forever. And
It,
so they did the same thing with the hydrogen, machine, and they do so many things like that. Look at their samurai swords. Like they're masterpieces. These people are so incredible to me. If you've ever, met them and seen their culture, they're absolutely a beautiful people. And I believe that it's because when you dig into the heart, and that's where it really comes from. Corruption either comes from your heart, or the wonderful things that you can do come from the heart. And this guy's daughter mattered to him, for example, and it came from his heart. It comes from love, and
yes.
hope comes from love. And that's why this is so important to me, because I know that someday I'm clearly going to die. We don't live forever. And I don't care about having a bunch of, money and fancy cars and all this stuff. I know what matters, because I did have a near-death experience, which I don't necessarily talk about a lot. But when I saw what happens when you go to the other side, I'm telling you, all the good that you've ever done for others, or all the bad that you've ever done, that's what you're going to encounter when you go to the other side. You will feel the pain that you caused to others if you were a corrupt person. And so I believe that what Jesus said, you remember when Jesus was asked, "Hey, Jesus, what's the most important of all your teachings?" And he didn't say, "Well, the most important thing is to give 10% to the church." He didn't say that, right? He didn't say, "Oh, the most important thing." There's a lot of things he didn't say, but what he did say was, "Love one another as I have loved you." And
Yes.
that's the kind of life that I want to live. And so thank you for having me on. This is exactly why I do
This
what I
is
do.
beautiful. It's very, very awesome. And we need to hear this more. We need to, I'm definitely going to be pushing this episode. It is, it's really great. I appreciate your perspective and the love that you're spreading. That's really what it's about, is hope and love and just supporting others and helping them see there is light at the end of the tunnel. Is that the another analogy, right?
You should see how they grow their food, by the way, Bridget. I
That's good.
Unbelievable. I mean, and they love water so much. I've spent time there, but I'm actually looking to be there eventually, just live there. But it's really tough because they have really strict rules about living in their country.
I'm sure they do because of you don't want it to be filtered with bad influence.
That's absolutely right. And you should see how they feed kids in school. Did you know they have nutritionists in school for the kids? I mean, in American schools, they give you that slop. And I know because, I mean, they give you the greasy pizza, or they give you just
Right.
whatever they give you. And in Japan, they have because they understand how food affects the developing mind of a child, right? Why do you think their intelligence is so high? Did you know that they have literally zero illiteracy rate in Japan?
Oh,
The
wow.
only people who are not literate are people with certain developmental issues. But beyond that, they virtually have a zero literacy rate. I mean, that's unbelievable.
That is a great example that we should look up to. Or some people are jealous, but I'm not. But I just think it's right.
I mean, why, right? If we can learn from others to elevate ourselves, why not? You
That's
know,
why
I'm not biased. Like, I don't care if it's Japanese or if it's
me,
Chinese or if it's Russian, whoever's doing things right. If America's doing things right, then America. I don't care. I love people. I don't think Jesus said, "Hey, you only love people as long as they're from your own country." You know,
I think you and I are on the same page. We have a lot in common. Again, it has to do with hope and love and being curious. That's how I see it.
absolutely. I'm totally with you. And so again, I hope people, the only way they need to share this video, they need to
Yes.
share, subscribe. This is the only way that you spread the good information,
Yes.
out there. And I know that everybody just wants to watch cat videos or whatever, and I know that this is probably not the most exciting subject in the world, but I'll tell you one thing, when you're sick, it'll matter to you. I can promise you
It
that.
will. It will matter. You'll. So anyway, I appreciate your time, Greg. You have very lots of knowledge and I'm very passionate. And I think this is really great endeavor. I call it an endeavor. We just got to keep pushing, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so much good new stuff coming out of Japan too, by the way. They're learning how to regrow teeth, by the way.
Really? That's
Yep.
interesting. Yeah,
It has
that
to do with a little protein in the body that gets shut off and they can activate and you can regrow teeth. And And they're doing some amazing work with stem cells. In fact, I worked with Dr. Kong because Dr. Kong didn't understand hydrogen production. In fact, she was using the pills. She didn't realize the difference. And so the data on, I actually was one of her patients. I decided to try her stem cell technology with my hydrogen techniques. And the results were so unbelievable, actually. And by the way, very anti-aging too. So hydrogen has this profound effect on the skin and collagen. And so they use it as a beauty product also in Japan. Not to mention, they also use it for fertility. It appears to make men and women more fertile. So for people who are having trouble, getting pregnant or having a baby, if you want to have the healthiest baby possible, all these type of things, because health and anti-age, like anything that's anti-aging is most likely going to be good for your health. And so I had a lot of issues, and now, I do this as much as I can. And obviously it's been so profound for my life. And again, I'm so thankful that we got to talk about this. And I hope you can get on the cleanest water in the world with the best hydrogen water in the world for you and your family.
But I talk about this all. They used to make fun of me, but whatever. I just continue being Brigitte, and you're continuing being Greg, right?
I mean, yeah. And I know sometimes it annoys people, but I'll tell you one thing: when they're sick, they come running right away, just like my brother with his kidney disease. Like, oh, can you help me? It happens.
I appreciate your time, and I'll include the link you mentioned, Uprising 144K, in the description.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Let's see. You want me to name all the products if people are interested?
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so the first one to clean your water again is mypurewater.com, a discount code Uprising 144K. The second one is the hydrogen machine from holyhydrogen.com. That one do you have a discount code for that one, Brigitte?
No, I did not.
You can try Uprising 144K and see if it works. I don't know if that will work. Another interesting product that I use is, have you ever heard of vacuum blenders?
No.
Oh, this is so cool. This is a website called void-system.com. Again, the discount code is Uprising 144K. But what it does is I make these smoothies with all the fiber and minerals and nutrients and antioxidants and everything. And this machine, I thought it was a hoax also at first until I saw the data. It sucks the oxygen out of the blender before you blend it so that it doesn't oxidize. So when you cut an apple, how it oxidizes?
Right.
So if you suck it out and then you blend it, it doesn't oxidize, and you can literally taste the flavor difference. You can see the color difference because of it's brighter colors. And so you can get one of those blenders, and they're really, really affordable, and it's a great company. So that's another one of the products. Another product I really like, this is for my nutrients. It's from a company called, have you ever heard of iShopPurium.com? And Purium is spelled P-U-R-I-U-M. And so this product, in fact, I'll just grab it here real quick. But this particular product, because I don't take any multivitamins, but I do know that if you want to overcome nutritional deficiencies, we know that the body responds to food better than a pill. Did you know that they actually did a study on that where they tested multivitamins versus food for nutrients? And so I buy this product. It's called Power Shake. I just finished it also. I had to go grab it from the recycling bin. Every single ingredient is food. That's all. It's just food, but it's like a bunch of superfoods. And I put this in the smoothie. This is part of my technique for overcoming nutritional deficiencies. And so it's from the website iShopPurium.com, and it's called Power Shake. And if you put in the discount code Uprising 144K, they give you a really big discount on your first couple of purchases. And so those are the main things that I share. So I don't share 100 different products. They have these shows where it's like, it's always a new product of the week. And I use very simple methods, mostly the blender, the carbon filter, the hydrogen, and just some nutrients. It's not that complicated.
No, we keep it simple. I agree. The supplement stuff, majority of it doesn't work.
Yeah, not only that, have you seen that some people have actually died from some supplements?
No, I have not.
Because what happens is they're doing them so cheap and cutting corners. If you did lab tests, you find these contaminants, heavy metals, stuff like that, and it was affecting, for example, a woman's liver.
Wow.
And it caused her to have liver failure, and she died.
Overdose sound kind of what it is. Is that the right term?
Well, and I don't even know if it was an overdose as much as she was just taking what she thought were, vitamins or a supplement. And I'm telling you right now, it's really sad, but I think that the majority of the industry has gone, in my personal opinion, a very bad direction. I don't think they're trying to make the highest quality of products. I even had a company try to recruit me, and when I saw how they were making the products, I'm like, guys, how come you don't do better than this, right? And they said, we could. And I'm like, well, why don't you? They said it'd be too expensive. We make less profit. And that's when I said, I want nothing to do with you.
People don't trust the industry because of that. They see it too. You've got to create the trust.
And that's dangerous too, right? Because if you have like let's say Dr. Mercola, and you're like, well, I trust this guy, but you don't really know how many. I don't even think he knows the majority,
Right.
a lot of his products and how they're made and what's in them. Or a lot of it, like I said, by me getting involved in all this, I realized what's going on behind the scenes, and that's why, again, this is why they don't like me, because they have tried to buy me out. By the way,
You're standing up for the right thing.
I mean, I'm trying to, but it's still been going pretty small, and it's been tough. But
Hey, it's okay. We got to talk about it more, right?
yeah. So I hope the people, hope this reached the people, and I hope they give your video a thumbs up, help that algorithm get out there.
Thank you so much, Greg.
Absolutely. Thank you too, Bridget. It was really nice talking to you.